I want to start off this video by saying when they first announced James Gunn's Superman movie, I had never been so excited. At the time, I wasn't even really a fan of the character, but I knew how important it was to have a good Superman portrayal in the world. I knew how important he was to my friends in the comic space. The casting of David Corenswet was something that brought me a lot of hope because I knew everything in the future of the DCU relied on Superman. The months leading up to the costume reveal had everyone speculating how awesome it would look. Gone were the days of muted colours and overly detailed materials, or so we thought. Everything that was revealed about the film before release was unfortunately just okay, but I remained hopeful. It had the perfect cast, a successful comic book director, and bright colours. It seemed James Gunn really understood Superman down to the minute details of his character. We finally had a real comic book fan making a Superman movie, and that's not exactly false either. But as you can guess from the title, my opinion is that James Gunn's understanding of Superman is entirely surface level. Over the last couple years, my opinion on Superman as a character has changed. I used to appreciate him, but never felt too connected to him or that interested. And that really is the fault of my exposure to the character at that point in my life. I had the animated series, the DCEU, and Injustice to teach me about the character. Genuinely couldn't pick a worse introduction to Superman than those three. It's all I knew, and I know that's the case for basically my entire generation. As I started to branch out from just Batman comics, I started to read more and more Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern, and I got crumbs of Superman through their stories. Around a year from the release of James Gunn's Superman film, I started my reading journey. Superman Birthright was the most requested comic for me to read, thanks to my Twitter. But also, side note, I don't really have a Twitter anymore. I got banned for having too many good takes, I guess. But you can follow my new account linked in the pinned comment. Anyway, Birthright changed my perception of the character and really opened up my eyes to the complexity of Superman that the media had failed to grasp for my entire life. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Birthright throughout the video, as I can clearly see Gunn take some elements from that comic for his film. However, I plan to make a video going into how good that origin is for Superman eventually. So subscribe, I guess, if you haven't, so you don't miss that yap session. Anyway, my favourite thing from that comic is the Lex and Clark friendship that the Smallville TV show also incorporates. It really adds layers to Lex, and in my opinion, I think it makes Lex's hate for Clark sting so much more, with that history going so rich and deep like that. Gunn clearly didn't incorporate that into the film, and that's okay, but instead of replacing it with something else that makes their feud more interesting, it just boils down to Lex being a hater. And there's nothing really wrong with that, it's just surface level. It's also extremely one-sided hatred. It isn't even a rivalry like it's meant to be. Lex just hates Superman because he can, but Superman doesn't have a connection to Lex and only ends up hating him because of what Lex does to him throughout the movie. It's very basic. This movie is very safe in terms of its writing. It's good enough, but I would love to come away from a Superman film one day feeling fully satisfied. Every time I left the theatre after watching The Batman, I felt like I had experienced something truly unique and really defining for Batman's character. It did a lot of good press for the character of Batman after the Nolan movies. Now, with Superman, every time the movie nears a dramatic moment, there's always something that cuts away and breaks the momentum. The movie is allergic to standing its ground and maintaining a feeling for longer than 5 seconds before it needs to inject a scene of Krypto being a bad dog. The best part about this movie is Lex Luthor. Yes, his relationship with Superman is very surface level, but I really like how they show off how intelligent Lex is. Too many adaptations forget Lex is a genius, and that's something that even Smallville didn't really touch on. Nicholas Hoult is a crazy good casting. He delivers the best performance in the entire movie. I wish we got to see more of him outside of his little command center. I would have liked to see him bend the rules of the world around him a little bit more. Another thing I think could have been done differently are the Kents. They're kind of introduced as simple old people, and I think that's kind of diminishing for their characters since they raised Superman. But they're not that bad, and I truly think they were casted perfectly. That said, I think Superman as a character works best when his parents are gone. I think it opens up more opportunities for better Superman stories where his only connection to being human is gone. It forces him to grow as a character and build stronger relationships, find other ties to that. Too many people think that Superman losing a loved one will make him evil, and that's such a stupid thing that Injustice is the culprit of. Superman should be heavily affected by death, and we see that in this movie, but not in the negative direction. Yes, he can get angry and even think about killing, but it's his humanity and his morals that keep that from happening. That's what makes Superman Superman. Take that away, you're left with a boring mess. The theme of this movie stems from his birth parents being evil and sending Kal-El there to enslave Earth. This kinda sucks. I like when his parents are actually good people. The entire point of General Zod is that he's Krypton's worst, so it kind of diminishes the entire point of his character. In the end, Superman decides to practically push away his alien side and fully embrace humanity. Yes, Clark's humanity should be a big part of his character, but so is his alien side. Making the House of El evil here makes wanting to let Superman be proud of his alien heritage kind of difficult, because they're terrible people. It's okay to be both human and alien. That's what Superman is. And the movie really only focused on him proving himself as a human, which I think is a boring take. Nonetheless, the movie itself is still entertaining. I really like Lois Lane. Rachel Brosnahan might be the most perfect Lois Lane casting of all time. She truly embodies Lois Lane, and Gunn's writing of her actually is really good. I will say it's kind of disappointing we don't get to see the beginning of their relationship, but it's still early enough to see it evolve. I would have liked to see Lois find out about Clark's powers. Stuff like that. Also, the Justice Gang is in this movie. Mr. Terrific, I'm sure, is everybody's highlight. Hawkgirl is there, and she looks really great, but she doesn't really do much. Old and blonde Guy Gardner kinda sucks, but whatever. This is a very comic-y feeling movie, and I really like that. It's quite charming, and it's not really afraid of embracing the source material. I like the Fortress of Solitude here. I think it's really fantastical, and even though the Superman robots are kinda stupid, it's still a cool setting, and it's refreshing to see the Fortress again in a Superman movie. I will say, Ultraman being a clone of Superman was pretty obvious as soon as the Fortress unsheathed itself for Lex and his crew. So anyone with a brain was kind of spoiled there, but it doesn't really take much away from the movie, so I don't care. I'm going to try and be positive here because I know I've been hating a bit, but with his costume, it looks good. It has almost every element of a Superman suit I would like, it's just kind of done badly. I love the trunks, the emblem, the cape with the yellow emblem is awesome, the colors, even the collar isn't that bad, but it's just too thick. When you think of Superman in your head, he's muscular. That's just how it is. And David Cornsworth really beefed up for his role as Superman in this movie. So the costume feels more like, I don't know, a uniform or even street clothes rather than a superhero costume. I feel like making this suit more fitting to David's body would have done wonders for his appearance. And of course I have nitpicks, like the emblem being bigger and the trunks could have been a bit lower. But the thing that makes this suit just okay is the thickness and its inability to do justice to David's physique. I don't even mind the collar or the excessive detailing it has. As long as it was better fitted, it would have been a lot nicer. I hope that's the direction they go for the sequel, which I'm very excited for. I mentioned the cinematography here kinda sucks. The flight scenes are sourceless and the whole movie has this weird fish lens over it. Would you be surprised to know that the same cinematographer of Superman also made the Flash movie? It's painfully obvious. There's one scene with Jimmy Olsen and he goes to meet up with Eve in that creepy alleyway, and man is it shot good. It's shot so distractingly good, it's almost a jump scare going back to the rest of the movie's very mild cinematography. James Gunn has actually hired a different cinematographer for the sequel, and that excites me. He's done a lot of good work, and so I'm excited because I know you probably don't think it's a big deal, but how a movie is shot and how it looks is extremely important to how it makes you feel as the viewer. You might not even notice it, but subconsciously it's something that heavily contributes to how you feel about a scene. Overall, this movie is good, almost great, but it is just surface level. I would love for the sequel to dive a little bit more into Clark's character without having comedic relief every 5 seconds or a drastic change to his mythos like making the House of El evil. Also, I can't talk about this movie and not mention the scene where the Justice Gang murder the giant monster in Metropolis while Superman barely does anything. I found it weird Clark was barely bothered by the painful death that the creature suffered and acted as though he barely stubbed his toe. Clark values all life, and I kind of found that scene a little weird. Anyway, thanks for watching. That's all I have to say for now, and I'll hopefully see you in the next video.